I'm Tim Casella in Las Vegas, Nevada.
I'm Venezia Fenus in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Derek Robinson in 29 Palms, California. This is PACTS International TV. Hello, and welcome to the premiere episode of PACTS International TV. I'm Derek Robinson. Today's edition is for the month of March 2020. We have news, information, announcements, and more as we explore what's happening in the targeted individual community. For those who are new to the subject, targeted individuals are those who are harassed, surveilled, and tormented by people who appear to be from a variety of government agencies. The phenomena could be categorized as psychological torture or cyber torture, as recently defined by the United Nations Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer. The advanced effects from microwave technologies and directed energy weapons are indicative of what we believe to stem from government research, information of which is publicly available online. The organized stalking, electronic harassment, and in many cases, non-consensual human experimentation are consistent with classic examples of government overreach and abuse. We will be talking about the technologies used, those behind them, and those who are victims of them during the course of this program series.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment, Nils Melzer, gave a presentation to the UN Human Rights Council on February 28 about psychological torture or no-touch torture, which he has now termed cyber torture. In early November of last year, Mr. Melzer called on the world community to fill out a questionnaire so that he could glean information about this phenomenon, which he has declared is happening to Julian Assange and possibly to victims in countries all across the globe. The presentation went well and received wide support from member countries in attendance. Many requested more information about psychological torture, and they unanimously denounced the use of all forms of torture, whether physical or psychological. Mr. Melzer later agreed to meet with Magnus Olsson and Henning White, who were representing the TI community at this most important international gathering. According to Magnus Olsson, the UN Rapporteur on Torture plans to conduct an investigation and issue a number of reports over the next few weeks about cyber torture and how it can be addressed by law enforcement agencies worldwide.
Hello, my name is Desiree Foley, and I'm here to give you a brief lesson on MKUltra. MKUltra was a top-secret CIA project in which the agency conducted hundreds of experiments. MKUltra lasted from 1953 until about 1973. Details of the illicit program didn't become public until 1975, during the congressional investigation into widespread illegal CIA activities within the United States and all over the world. Many of the tests were conducted in universities, hospitals, or prisons in the United States and Canada. Most of these took place between the years of 1953 and 1964, but it's not clear how many people were involved in these tests. The agency kept notoriously poor records and destroyed most of the MKUltra documents when the program was officially halted in 1973. The CIA began to experiment with LSD under the direction of agency's chemists and poison experts. They believed the agency could harness the drug's mind-altering properties for brainwashing or psychological torture. One of the operations was called Midnight Climax. Midnight Climax was an MKUltra project in which the government employed prostitutes to lure unsuspecting men to the CIA safe houses where the drug experiments took place. The CIA would dose the men with LSD. The LSD was put into their cocktails, and the CIA watched behind a two-way mirror observing the drug effects on the men's behavior. Recording devices were installed into the prostitutes' rooms disguised as electrical outlets. In 1974, New York Times journalist Seymour Hersh published a story about how the CIA had conducted non-consensual drug experiments and illegal spying operations on U.S. citizens. His reports started the lengthy process of bringing long suppressed details about MKUltra to light. The following year, President Ford, in the wake of the Watergate scandal and the growing distrust of the U.S. government, set up the United States President's Commission on the CIA activities within the United States to investigate the illegal CIA activities, including Project MKUltra and other experiments on unsuspecting citizens. The commission was led by Vice President Nelson Rockefeller and is commonly referred to the Rockefeller Commission. The Church Committee, helmed by Idaho Democrat Senator Frank Church, was a larger investigation into the abuses of CIA, FBI, and other U.S. intelligence agencies during and after the resignation of President Richard M. Nixon. The Church Committee delved into the plots to assassinate foreign leaders, including Cuban dictator Fidel Castro and Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba. It also uncovered thousands of documents related to MKUltra. These revelations resulted in Ford's 1976 executive order on intelligence activities that prohibit experimentation with drugs on human subjects, except with the informed consent in writing and witnessed by a disinterested party of each such human subject. We are here to tell you that these programs still exist under new code names, and our new TV podcast is here to shine a light on this darkness.
Tonight I'm going to talk about the end of World War II, a program called Project Overcast. Later was renamed Operation Paperclip. Now, Project Overcast and Operation Paperclip segued or turned into what became Project MKUltra. Now, when World War II ended, Russia and America, they were racing and fighting to capture and use as many German scientists as they could get to come to each other, to their sides. Now, one of the scientists America got was a Dr. Heinz Schlick. He was an electronics warfare expert who developed many of the weapons being used on TIs today. He developed during World War II, and they're still being used on targeted individuals today, and have, of course, been expanded upon since then. Another one of the doctors was a doctor named Willard Mackley. Now, Dr. Willard Mackley had come through Operation Paperclip to the CIA here in the United States. We sent him back to Germany to help develop the MKUltra program in Germany. He used it against captured Russians, spies, to interrogate them and try to control them through mind control. He also used MKUltra on American agents to see how they would hold up to mind control and being targeted or being caught. Now, Dr. Mackley was also the first scientist to explore the possibilities of creating a Manchurian candidate. Operation Bluebird was born through Manchurian candidate. Later, it was renamed MKUltra and created to experiment in behavioral engineering of human beings. The Nuremberg Code after World War II banned experimenting on human beings without their informed consent. This, of course, was completely ignored by the Nazi scientists who were working for the CIA. We also got through Operation Paperclip the top intelligence agent of Nazi Germany. His name was General Gehlen. Now, the Americans made a deal and brought him into the U.S. and into the CIA. Now, he brought a lot of his agents professors, scientists, and people that worked with him into the CIA with him from Germany. And by the mid-1950s, the German Nazis from World War II were dominating the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, the native-born Americans of the CIA went to Wild Bill Donovan, and they tried to do something how the CIA had become dominated by the German sector, it was called. And these were the Nazi scientists and intelligence agents from World War II. And the German sector were so powerful by this time that they managed to get Wild Bill and the native-born, the American agents of power, retired. They purged them out of the CIA. And the CIA at this point became not just controlled by the Nazis, but dominated by the Nazi scientists and agents that had come over from World War II. Now, Project Overcast led to MKUltra. MKUltra led to 149 sub-programs. Now, those sub-programs in MKUltra included Monarch and Manchurian candidates, super soldiers, mind control, and behavioral engineering of human beings. Over 86 universities here in the United States, over 86 universities and institutions were involved. The deputy director of the CIA in 1977 revealed that there was an extensive testing and experimentation program which included covert drug tests, non-consensual human experimentation on citizens at all levels of society, both high and low. Americans that were born here and Americans that were immigrated here. Now, in 1973, the early records of MKUltra and mind control were destroyed by then CIA Director Richard Helms. The CIA claimed at that point that they stopped non-consensual human testing. They were, of course, lying. Now, there were 149 MKUltra sub-projects. After 1973, they added another 33 sub-projects to MKUltra. Now, these sub-projects included hypnosis, exotic pathogens, delivery systems, including a remote, microwave, DEW, sonic, digital, RF frequencies, ham radio frequencies, subliminal and behavioral entrainment and conditioning, including the implantation of medical devices, the implants that we talk about so often. Also, what is known as false tells. False tells are what I call disidentifiers. These are used for the purposes of propaganda and to deliver false information to intelligence agents from another country. And this allows agents from other countries practiced in mind control and psych warfare to wage this on you, and you react in a certain way, and it tells them one thing when the reality is something else. It's standard operating procedure through the intelligence agencies throughout the world now. The government claims they got into mind control as a response to Soviet, Chinese, and North Koreans using mind control to brainwash captured American soldiers during the Korean War. And this is how they claim MKUltra got started. But that's not how it got started. It got started through the Nazi scientists who had already been experimenting on humans on mind control, which just got later renamed MKUltra, but from World War II. Matter of fact, since World War II, MKUltra has kept advancing to the point that they can now break you remotely with drugs, hypnotism, lies, and what is known as constructs. It's a form, construct is a form of audio and video V2K, descriptive technique, false memory implantation, microwaves and RF frequencies, and emotional manipulation through many means, controlling your behavior and thoughts, kind of like a evil Geppetto. Modern MKUltra uses more nefarious methodology and technology than even that to control an unwitting victim's minds. including the use of radiation. The MK of MKUltra, of course, stands for mind control, because control in German is spelled with a K. Now, the government claims MKUltra is no longer in use, but given the matching claims of victims from all over the world, all evidence suggests it is not only still being used, but is being used all over the planet with about as much regard to the borders of nations as to the rights of human beings to be secure in self. MKUltra is real, and it's still being used every day in this nation and every other nation on the planet.
Welcome, guys. And what are your thoughts so far about our new venture, PACTS International TV?
Hi, I'm Tim. I have to tell you that I think this is a great venture for PACTS International. We have an impact on the TI community. A lot of TIs turn to us for information, and for us to expand to PACTS International TV is actually a evolutionary step. We are people actively involved in the activism to fight what the program operators are doing to targeted individuals all over the planet. And we are going to bring information, tech, measures, countermeasures, interviews, and exactly what targeted individuals need to know through this program we are going to present. Desiree, what do you think?
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yes, I'm very excited about this. This is something that is new to PACTS regarding this new venture for the podcast, for the TV podcast. I think a lot of great things are going to come from this, and that it does provide our community with more unity as working together and coming together.
Thank you, Desiree, for that. I think that this is a very innovative idea as far as this news format, and I really believe that bringing all TIs to one particular location with a variety of different guests, with different correspondents, all different walks of life, all ages, all ethnic origins. I believe that there's going to be something for everyone here. And to piggyback on what Desiree had mentioned, unity.
Okay, next question is, what personal experiences do you bring to this project?
My personal experience is I've been working with another popular YouTube channel and doing lives on their channel, and also we had made a documentary, so I'm getting a lot of experience with that. And also wanted to say that I am a light worker, and I'm here to shed some light on some darkness.
Hey, I'm Tim Casella, and my personal experience is I have a degree in radio, TV, broadcasting. I'm currently in college to get a degree in intelligence studies and operations and analysis and psychology. And what I bring to this is over 10 years experience professional broadcasting. V?
Thank you, Tim. I'm also a light worker like Desiree. I'm an energy healer, teacher, a spiritual teacher and guide. Also, I have some editing and research experience. I also have an advanced degree in law, so I have a Juris Doctorate degree as well.
And I also like to say that I've had experience as a public access producer for many years. Of course, that is an amateur talent skill, but it has afforded me a wide variety of ways to apply that skill, and it's something that I'm very glad that I was able to learn. As a producer of shows, I was able to run camera, just utilize all facets of production from being on camera to editing to running camera, basically all facets of production. So that is really helping me with this venture. So that is my contribution to this project. Hi, and welcome back. We're talking with James Walbert, who is one of the most accomplished pioneers in our community in terms of success in court, evidence gathering, and raising public awareness. James was born in Gary, Indiana, grew up in the Chicago area, and moved to Wichita, Kansas in 2001. However, he currently resides in the Green Bay, Wisconsin area. He is a CEO, president, inventor, and business owner, the holder of 7 U.S. patents and 12 pieces of intellectual property. His business is called Clean Can Technologies, LLC. They are government-affiliated, sponsored, funded, small business association certified, and qualified for all U.S. government investments and contract bidding within the field of antibacterial plastics research and development. To date, he has developed 2 projects for in-house production valued at $67 billion, which he says is the reason for this crime against him. He became an inventor in the year of 2004 and opened his business in the year 2013. Most recently, he appeared in the History Channel TV series called In Search Of, with host Zachary Quinto in their episode on mind control. James, hi, and welcome to our program.
Hi, Derek. Thank you for the opportunity to speak out against the crime.
Okay, very good. So why don't we start at the beginning? Can you tell us how your targeting started?
Oh yeah, back in the year 2004, I had woke in my bed in the month of February with a my left ear had been bleeding and my jaw had been sutured and on the inside of my mouth. And I had went to the doctor, and sure enough, he had requested an MRI, and he had discovered 5 foreign bodies in my upper body. So all the way from the trapezia to both of my ears and inside of my throat, he had identified it as an inner ear cochlea voice duplicator reconnaissance system, as well as a RFID tracking ID system. Prior to that, I had been threatened by my former investor, business partner, that he were going to use the weaponry against me, as well as he had been successful in the past as far as obtaining belongings, goods, breaking up relationships and things like that. Prior to my knowledge of ever being a victim of the harassment, I was completely ignorant to the fact of what he were talking about until it started beginning. Very soon after I had gone to the doctor and confirmed the implants, I pretty much laid low, and then I started to build a case from there. And by the year 2009, I was able to submit the evidence through the United States District Court 18 in Wichita, Kansas, and I was able to prove with 128 documents and 23 professional findings the actual apprehension of myself being drugged as well as implanted and illegal tracking and harassment.
Okay, so how do you feel that you came to be implanted? How did that happen?
I truly feel that it is it's monetarily motivated, as outlined in the bio. William J. Taylor Agencies, a very famous private investigator for all the celebrities. He had found the actual frequency itself and had drawn a conclusive and indicative correlation to the fact that, coincidentally, as it turns out, I was drugged and implanted the week I filed for my patents. So the FBI didn't really think that that was any coincidence, that I filed for my patents and I woke up drugged and implanted in my home. So that, to me, just scored out the government completely. Another thing that scored out the government in my particular case was the fact that my investor business partner had told me that he was going to do it to me and that he would get away with it, and he had been doing it for years to people.
Wow, so you actually knew who the perpetrator was in this case.
Yes, yes. And in the year 2009, in January of 2009, I filed for a restraining order against the technology and the individual using the technology from abuse, and I was successful in winning that court case.
Okay, so as a result of that court action, how did that affect your perpetrator? Did it stop him? Did it slow him down? How did it affect your situation?
Very soon after the issuance of the court's restraining order against the technology as well as the individual using it, the individuals had realized the seriousness of the criminalities. Through many years of them observing me, compiling the laws, compiling the evidence, having a strategic approach, the methodology of collecting the evidence, because my case carries investigatory support, congressional support, psychological support, medical support, clinicianal support. I have 128 documents of pure solid evidence that's non-refutable by professionals. So these aren't claims that I've been making myself, as much as the claims that are being backed up and being made and stated by professionals. So that's something that was very significant right there. So that had a causation or a cause and effect to basically cause them to slow down quite a bit. They weren't stalking me near as close. Even to this day, they're still here, of course, because there's ongoing investigations constantly. And that was the whole reason, one of my whole motivations of moving to Wisconsin, is because this is the highest payout state due to the laws that we were able to get passed. But the harassment had dwindled and it had been suppressed significantly.
Okay, where is your perpetrator located? Is it? I know.
The actual main person had relocated from the Virginia, Illinois area into southern Kansas, and then back into the Des Moines, Iowa area right now is where he's located. These weapons, from what I understand, have a very long broadcasting range. They can broadcast up to several thousand meters away. So keeping that in mind, all we would have to have is a small acoustic repeater system that would cause it to be repeated from the point of execution.
So, and what year were you targeted, James?
I was targeted in the year 2004.
2004. So we're talking about 15, 16, 17 years or something like that?
Yes. And it now has graduated into the 16-year point, and last year I had been fortunate enough to be chosen by the History Channel scientific community to go out and basically have new evidence that I've been able to collect throughout the years and present it to them as well.
Okay, so what about your court case? Were you able to prosecute these individuals that are doing this to you? How successful is it?
As it turns out, the individual never showed up. So what the court did, the court passed it through a judge, Judge Terry Pullman. He's a public law judge. So then they passed it through another judge that has actually a criminal law judge. And see, those two things are very significant, Derek, because now, with the state representative jumping in, we were able to pass, in the year 2009, we were able to pass 14 statutory provisional laws in 14 different states. So, and that's bearing my case. And the evidence that I was actually presenting, it was when Jim Guest had introduced House Bill 550 on the floor, 14 other state representatives were very concerned that this happened to any constituent in any state. So they had approached Jim Guest during a recess session, and he introduced all my documentation and House Bill 550 to them. And House Bill 550 was voted in. My case was 100% the support of it, as well as had been adopted into 2014, House Bill 2014, which is even more scrupulous as far as the punishments are concerned in the state of Missouri to be implemented now. But that had happened. So that was a very significant move.
Well, yeah, there are several states that have this this type of legislation. They kind of vary from state to state. I think in Missouri it has to do with employers. Is that correct?
Yeah, and see that, and it's all a matter of wording. You know, employers are the ones that would be the most demanding of the individual. But if you read further down in all of the 14 provisional statutory laws now have become penal code, that it is illegal for apprehension as well as actual forced placement under any circumstances, including employment.
Okay. All right. So what year did you move to Wisconsin, your current location?
I had relocated to the Wisconsin area in 2014. I had strategically removed. I had moved to. I moved here strategically. The stipulative fines and provisional law in the state of Wisconsin are the most stringent. Senator and congressional member James Doyle at the time, I spoke with him, and he said that under no circumstances should this have ever happened to any human being, let alone in the United States of America, under any reasons at all. He said not even the government has the right to microchip you and track you and abuse you like this. This is ridiculous. He said, I will enforce the most stringent laws. And basically he invited me to, reside in his state. And that was back in 2010. So, and being a victim, as well as I do, Derek, it's very difficult, to maintain a financial composure, to be able to make such a move. That's thousands of miles, so I relocated back here and actually to here in 2014, became a constituent immediately, filed with the office of James Doyle. He had suggested that I get a hold of detectives and start accruing information immediately. So that's exactly what I've done.
Wow. No,
So something this summer is going to happen. I can't get into a lot of detail about it because this time is going to be just a full on, just like it was last time. I'm going to slam dunk it. I've got investigators here. I have all the information that I need. Here is a $10,000 a day fine plus 5 years in prison for a malicious intentional act of a personal felony, a physical assault, and attempted murder with a deadly weapon.
Okay, so this is what you're talking about, though, is a state law. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that is a statutory provisional law.
Okay,
House
so
Bill 2041.
right, and your perpetrator lives in where he lives out of state.
Yeah. Well, the actual main one lives out of state, but the thing that I've come to learn throughout my years of harassment is that the acoustic repeaters are owned by a ham operator. They're not owned by government. They're actually owned. The frequency correlation has been allocated to a Federal Communication Commission's license number. Upon investigation of the FCC number that we were able to identify the frequency to, they are just literally local individuals right here in the Appleton, Neenah, Green Bay, Wisconsin area. So, and they're not actually registered in the state of Wisconsin. So they have other charges that are going to be pending as far as interstate federal charges, because when you cross the line, state line, and stuff like that. So now then it becomes a federal issue.
Absolutely. Okay, well, it sounds like you have an exciting case ahead of you, James. And
yes.
And we're really happy to hear this, because you have been able to amass some really spectacular evidence, and it's been very impressive, and that's very well known in the community, that you're very meticulous about your evidence. Can you cite some of your sources with that, without compromising your case too much?
Yeah, I certainly can. My sources of investigatory evidence have been obtained through several special agents of the ATF, bioelectromagnetic specialists of the Department of Defense. Those two people I have to remain anonymous until testimonial dates, because they literally speak to me with a mask on. because they're former narco agents, and they're very sensitive about their identification. But those two are actively involved right here in the state of Wisconsin. Mike Smith and Frank Smith out of Quantico, Virginia, of the United States Naval Academy. Actually, NCIS is not just a television show, as you would know, Derek being a former naval officer, and that the Naval Criminal Investigation Service is an actual service. It's an actual federal entity, and they are truly based out of Quantico, Virginia. I was very fortunate in the year 2013 to meet with a former NCIS agent of 35 years of fantastic radio frequency biomagnetic specialist. His name was Alan Smith out of Reynoldsburg, Ohio. He had ran the actual frequencies using HP. It's what they call a hop logistic locator, and it located the frequency, gave us a telemetric area of destination. And sure enough, with forward-looking infrared, the thing about these weapons, Derek, is that they produce a massive amount of non-ionized energy. It's radiation. So it's not every day that you're able to look through FLIR, in a helicopter and be able to see a massive, huge red spot and coincidentally people walking around it. That's usually an area of propagation. So keeping that in mind, we were able to locate them logistically. Al had passed away a few years ago and left the investigation up to Mike and Frank. So I have the pleasure of having those two involved as well. William J. Taylor is also still actively involved in the investigation too.
Wow. Okay. The
yeah.
private investigator to the celebrities is still involved in the case.
Yeah, he's been very busy in the background. Now, see, the whole thing about the way we were doing communications over the internet, communicating through email, communicating through phone calls. As far and being a victim for so long, Derek, these are surveillance. These communicative abilities are, recoverable. There's a reconnaissance on them. The perps can definitely listen into our phone calls. They can receive our emails. They can hit they listen to us in our homes, So keeping that in mind, there has been a suppression of informational exchange due to that fact. Once we were able to confirm it, Wesley Williamson had pretty much backed off and said no more communications through the emails, no more nothing. When we do send an email, it'll just be a benign email to catch the virus, and then we trace the virus to an actual IP, and then we'll catch the locale there. So
okay, so are you looking for criminal prosecution in this case? Is that what you're
Yes, most definitely. That's the final move, is actual physical apprehension. Fortunately, this is what I found to be cool, is that the National Criminal Investigation Service, Michael, he is actually a federal prosecutorial enforcement agent. So he has the ability to force entry any residence in any United States, constituency of any person. So even if you were of the highest ranking of top secret military and he had a warrant for your arrest, he will walk in your door and he will arrest you. I think that to me gave me an iron shield of confidence, because now we have somebody, that and William J. Taylor is an amazing individual, but he has to still obtain local law enforcement, agency, help and stuff like that, where Mike can literally drive down in his little white SUV and walk straight up into the perpetrator's house, knock their door down, and make an arrest right then and there with no questions asked. And there's nothing that they can do about it. No matter if it were of the highest ranking of government, he can definitely arrest them. So that gave me the confidence that by God, this time no one's going to get away, whether they show up to court or not. And that's the reason my perpetrator was able to get away, is that my case was won by the preponderance of evidence, not in a default. I have the documents are online. I was able to present 123 documents of evidence from 23 professionals. So that was very significant to Judge Terry Pullman and Judge James Beasley. And that was enough to not only compel them to do their jobs as judicial leaders, but it was also enough to astonish them and overwhelm them with information and pique their curiosity as to how a normal constituent. I'm a maintenance technician and an inventor. I developed my business. I'm a research and development manufacturing officer in the field of antibacterial and plastics, and I had actually patented and the methodology, the method and apparatus for antibacterial plastics and the application of them within the military and all components of the Department of Defense. After that, Derek, is when this entourage of harassment and ridiculousness had begun.
Okay, so it sounds, James, that you are kind of busting some type of a targeting ring. There are multiple individuals involved in your case, it sounds like.
Yes, most definitely. See, and a lot of things that in the year 2018, in May, I had inquired with a victim, Bruce Pennington, out of the Wichita, Kansas area. Now, back in 2017, I spoke to Dr. John Hall and Dr. Terry Robinson. Dr. Jerry, we're all very, very good friends. We talk all the time to each other. Well, I had told him, that I had been, trying to help victims because, Derek, being a victim and being pushed to the state of almost homelessness, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. This has cost me a lot of money, and it has put me to the point of almost being broke sometimes, and which is understandable. They will run you out of your job. They will blacklist you. They'll blackball you. They'll do anything they can to keep you as broke as they possibly can be, especially when you have a case like mine. It's like they doubled up and they don't harass me as much. So what they're doing in the background is to trying to infiltrate like job scenes and furthering my business and stuff like that, which we have all information on. Apprehensiveness of the stopping the invention from being successful. I created a method apparatus for sanitization of beverage cans back in 2004 for the Coca-Cola company. I have 2 active contracts with them right now, valued at $12 to $17 billion over 5 years. That's a lot of money, and that is literally the monetary covetousness is their entire motivation. So keeping that in mind, that is something that we're bringing to a head right now.
Okay, excellent. Well, James, it sounds like, well, if you're indeed successful in this venture this summer in terms of prosecuting these individuals criminally, that would be a first to my knowledge. There have been a few successful court cases, but they have been in the civil arena where people have received money. But I've not heard of someone in our community actually being successful in pressing criminal charges. That would be, you're paving the way here, James. So let me just ask you a last question. Will you please keep in touch with us as far as the disposition of your case?
Oh, most definitely. The reason for, my pullback out of the crowds and out of the calls, because, man, Derek, you and I have known each other for a very long time. We met in Washington, D.C. at the Bioethics Committee, and we met in Idaho as well.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. So you and I, are fully aware of my diligence. I'm very dedicated. The whole attacking women and children while you're hiding from them, man, that just crosses the line when you're a man. If you got a problem with a gal and a kid, you probably got problems yourselves. But yeah, that's something that is I'm dying to be back into the community. But as far as me being able to be an active member, they are restricting me from it. My investigators restrict me from it. Attorneys restrict me from it. I try to communicate as much as I can, but as much big stuff, because now, like you said, Derek, making something this monumental, establishing the first court case was monumental. Actually proving the technology in court and compelling the state of Kansas as well as federal agents to enforce a restraining order against the boogeyman technology that never existed was very difficult. You know, they didn't want to believe me at first, you know, but then I overwhelmed them with so much documentation. The judges involved, one is a prosecutorial criminal judge, James Beasley, the other one's a public law judge. So this is how we were able to actually introduce a public law judge to State Representative Jim Guest, which those two had many conversations. And he's like, you realize that I can make this a law, James? And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm a state representative. I can make this a law. But yeah, they are the ones that have restricted me from being part of the groups, you know? So I'm feeling that once the court cases start rolling, once there's been arrests made and everything starts unfolding, I definitely can start releasing information towards the, you know, I can become more, you know, active, you know, with the entire, you know, community.
Absolutely, because that is actually what, there's an attorney that's working with our community currently. His name is Ray Schumann. And he is, he's hoping to kind of pave the way for those TIs in our community that are seeking to go to court, that are filing their independent court cases. And he is actually assisting them and hoping to ensure a greater success rate in our community. So he would be very much interested in what's happening with you and the success in your case. So we're all very interested in keeping up with what's happening with you. And if you would, please keep us posted.
I most certainly would. And upon, you know, any release, or because see, it's a release of communicative stature that I'm under right now, and I had to sign it, you know what I mean, because I can't communicate a whole bunch of stuff right now because the case is pretty big, you know. I mean, I do know of more than one group. It's actually a ring of people that have been building and designing what they call special devices, you know, custom devices. They're called, it's an SDCD, a special custom device, you know. So these special custom devices have been being manufactured out of northern Atlanta, around the Lawrenceville, Georgia area for a number of years now. So they've actually locked on to the chain of supply of these devices. You know, on Eleanor White's website, she had been very successful in releasing a press article back in the mid to late 80s that a group of 240 ham operators had gotten busted, Derek, executing this exact same crime against individuals. They were drugging it and implanting them and actually communicating to them via, you know, voice to skull microwave phenomenon technology. And they were all arrested. So and that was an FBI sting. It was a very large, powerful FBI sting. I have all court documentation. I have all court documentation, all their names, all their addresses, Ernie's Electronics out of northern Atlanta, Georgia. So this is the same thing that has, I mean, what my case is showing is that a very strong lines of parallel indicativeness to the exact same technology, just a different group of people, maybe a few of them gotten away, you know, but they were very successful, and actually the majority of them actually gotten busted on child pornography charges. So they were obtaining, you know, pornographic scenes of children and women, and then that's when I flipped my top. You know, I was all like, I don't think so. You know, I mean, if you got a problem with a full-grown man, you can't step up. I get it. You know, I mean, there's cowards everywhere, but you don't hide and pick on women and kids, let alone, you know, try to pornographically or sexually abuse them. My tolerance level is at 0 for that, you know. So, and I get it, you know, but that's where we're focused at right now, is that case right there. You can find it on Eleanor White's website, raven1.net. So, I mean, and it's a very significant court case. It's a very significant win, you know. And after the 20 years of the information being suppressed under the FOIA Act, the Freedom of Information Act, we can request and cite all these cases that are, consistent with this type of harassment. So this is something that I myself personally have been working on, with several attorneys, throughout the years to obtain these documents. Well, I have these documents now, so I have to find a way to see if I can release these documents to people like you, because that, without a doubt, Derek, I'm 100% in your corner. I always have been. I always will be. I think that you are one of the most diligent, bravest individuals that are out there. Because, man, with FFCHS, you were going through some serious stuff, and you held on like a champ, buddy. You never one time allowed any of this. You just rolled right off your back. And that to me is just like a hero. You know what I mean? You've done a fantastic, fantastic job.
Oh, well, thanks, James. I thought it was really important to keep focused on the goal, and
Yeah.
this is and what you're doing is actually the goal. Being able to capture these individuals and prosecute them. So we appreciate all of your efforts. And definitely, keep in touch with us. We'd like to hear more about this case. So, James Walbert, appreciate you being with us tonight. James Walbert, one of the most accomplished veterans in our community. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak out against the crime, Derek.
Hi, this is Venezia. If you or your group would like to announce your event on our program, please send us an email at info@pacsntl.org, or you can mail your announcement to us at PACS International, P.O. Box 1925, 29 Palms, California, 92277. Thank you.
And that concludes our show for today. We'd like to thank our guest, James Walbert, for having been with us and all the important information he brings to our community, including Representative Jim Guest, who was such an inspiration to everyone some years ago. And stay tuned for the latest news and updates from Nils Melzer, the United Nations Rapporteur on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, and Degrading Treatment or Punishment. And now, on behalf of our production staff, Desiree Foley, Tim Casella, Vanessa Fanous, and Gerard Horn, we wish you all a good night.